an original story created exclusively for Love Among Diamonds. The terminal lights flickered overhead as Eliza Matthews clutched her bag tighter, trapped between curious onlookers and her ex-boyfriend's calculated public humiliation. 5 feet away stood Adrian Reeves, a stranger whose impeccable suit and composed stillness made him seem untouchable in the chaos. Their eyes met across the crowded space, and before her mind could stop her, she was moving toward him, heart hammering against her ribs. "Hold me a moment," she whispered, not knowing those 5 words would change everything. His hesitation lasted only a second before his arms closed around her. Firm and certain, the embrace captured by a dozen phones that would make tomorrow's headlines and bind their fates in ways neither could imagine. The worst part wasn't that Daniel had followed her to the terminal. It was the audience he'd gathered. Strangers with nothing better to do than watch a woman being dismantled with surgical precision. "You always did have a flair for the dramatic exit," Daniel said, loud enough for everyone to hear. His expensive watch caught the overhead light as he gestured. 3 months of silence, and I find you hiding in an airport. Eliza Matthews straightened her spine. "I'm not hiding. And this isn't a conversation we need to have, because you'd rather run than admit you overreacted." His smile was perfect, practiced, the same one that had graced magazine covers. "Everyone makes mistakes, Liz." The nickname hit like a slap. She'd asked him not to use it after finding those messages, after seeing herself described as temporary to the woman he'd really wanted. "I have a flight to catch," she said, voice steady despite the heat climbing her neck. Daniel stepped closer, blocking her path. "You're making yourself look unstable. First the scene at the office, now this." He lowered his voice to a concern that didn't reach his eyes. "People are talking." Of course they were. Daniel had made sure of it after she'd ended things, spinning a narrative where she was the unhinged one, the professional reputation consultant who couldn't handle a minor indiscretion. Eliza glanced around, seeing phones tilting their way. This was becoming exactly what she'd spent 3 months trying to avoid. Another public moment for strangers to dissect. That's when she saw him. Standing apart from the curious onlookers, a tall man in a perfectly tailored dark suit watched the scene with detached interest. Something about his stillness made him seem untouchable by the chaos around him. Daniel followed her gaze. "Someone you know?" "Yes," she lied, moving before she could reconsider. The stranger's eyes widened slightly as she approached, the only break in his composed expression. "I need a favor," she whispered, close enough that only he could hear. "My ex is creating a scene. Could you just hold me a moment, please?" She'd expected hesitation questions. Instead, understanding flickered in his eyes. He nodded once, decisive. "Come here," he said quietly, opening his arms. Eliza stepped into his embrace, feeling strong hands settle carefully against her back. He smelled of cedar and something expensive she couldn't name. For 5 seconds, she counted them. She let herself be held by a complete stranger while her ex-boyfriend watched. When she pulled back, the man's expression remained neutral, but something had changed in his eyes. "Thank you," she said. "Adrian," he offered, not quite a question. "Eliza." She smiled, aware of Daniel's stare burning into her back. "I should go," Adrian nodded. "Safe travels." She turned to find Daniel's smug expression replaced with something harder. Without another word, he walked away, leaving her standing with the stranger whose kindness had just saved her dignity. It wasn't until she was through security that her phone began vibrating with notifications. A video was circulating, her desperate approach to a stranger, their embrace. Comments speculated about their relationship. By morning, everything had changed. Eliza woke to her phone ringing incessantly. 37 missed calls, hundreds of notifications, and a name that made her stomach drop. Adrian Reeves. Not just any stranger. The Adrian Reeves, 34-year-old CEO of Meridian Media Group, the technology and media conglomerate valued at billions. A man famous for his privacy, his control, and his complete avoidance of public relationships. The headlines were everywhere. Media mogul's mystery woman, Reeves' airport romance. Who is she? Tech's most eligible bachelor caught embracing unknown woman. Her work email pinged with a message from her boss at Clarity Consultants. Emergency meeting. 8 a.m., before the office opens. Eliza pressed her palms against her eyes. As a reputation consultant, she'd guided clients through media storms for years. Now she was the storm. When she arrived at Clarity's glass-fronted offices, Thomas was waiting, face grim. 3 major clients have called. They're concerned about association with someone in tabloid headlines. It was nothing, she started. It's never nothing when it involves Adrian Reeves. Thomas cut in. Whatever this is, fix it. Quickly and quietly. By afternoon, reporters had found her apartment building. She slipped in through the service entrance, climbed 6 flights to avoid the elevator, and locked her door with shaking hands. The knock came at 7:03 p.m. Through the peephole, she saw him, Adrian Reeves, rain dampening his shoulders, expression unreadable. "How did you find me?" she asked through the door. "I didn't expose your information," he answered, understanding her real question. "But I need to talk to you." Eliza hesitated, then unlocked the door. Adrian Reeves stood on her threshold, powerful and somehow vulnerable in the hallway light. "We have a problem," he said simply. Adrian Reeves looked different in her cramped entryway than he had in the terminal, less untouchable, more human, with raindrops sliding from his dark hair onto the collar of his coat. His eyes moved quickly around her apartment, taking in details with quiet assessment. "May I?" He gestured toward her living room. Eliza nodded, closing the door. "How bad is it?" "Depends on your definition." He didn't sit. "The video has 8 million views. My PR team has fielded 300 press inquiries. And my board of directors called an emergency meeting this morning." She winced. "Because of a 5-second hug. Because I'm notoriously private. And suddenly I'm trending." His voice remained even. "Your name has been identified. They're digging into your background. I'm aware." Eliza crossed her arms. "I've been suspended pending clarification of reputational concerns." Something flickered across his face. Regret, perhaps. "I'm sorry. Not your fault. I approached you, and I agreed." Adrian finally took a seat on her couch, the expensive fabric of his suit incongruous against her second-hand furniture. "Which is why I'm here with a proposition." Eliza's professional instincts sharpened. "What kind of proposition?" "A controlled narrative." He leaned forward. "The story is already out there. We can't erase it, but we can shape it." "Into what exactly?" "A brief, dignified connection. We met previously through mutual acquaintances. We're exploring a friendship. Nothing scandalous. Nothing that damages either of our professional reputations." Eliza studied him. "And why would you want that? Surely your PR team advised issuing a denial." "They did." Adrian's mouth tightened. "But denials create more questions, and my board has been insistent about my public image lately." Understanding dawned. "They want you more accessible, human. They want what sells," he corrected. "A CEO who appears connected to something beyond quarterly reports." Rain tapped against her windows as Eliza considered his words. "And what would this arrangement involve?" "A few public appearances, carefully managed. No excessive displays, no fabricated romance. Just enough to satisfy curiosity and demonstrate that neither of us has anything to hide. And then, a natural, amicable parting of ways when interest fades." Eliza walked to her window, watching raindrops trace paths down the glass. As a reputation consultant, she recognized a solid strategy. As a woman who'd been used as someone's narrative before, she felt her defenses rise. "I have conditions," she said, turning to face him. Adrian nodded. "I expected nothing less. No scripted lines. No controlling my schedule or dictating my choices. My personal life remains mine." "Agreed. Complete transparency between us. I won't be blindsided again." "Of course. And a clear end date. 4 weeks maximum." Adrian studied her. "The board meets with major investors in 6 weeks. 4 weeks might not be sufficient." "5 then, not negotiable." He nodded. 5 weeks. And one more thing." Eliza met his gaze directly. "I'm not your campaign strategy. I won't be packaged or positioned for your corporate benefit." Something unexpected happened then. Adrian Reeves smiled. A small, genuine expression that transformed his face. "That's precisely why this might work," he said quietly. They outlined basic parameters. 2 public appearances per week, joint statements if necessary, private contact information exchanged for emergencies. No physical displays beyond what would appear natural between acquaintances. No exclusive interviews. "My driver will collect you tomorrow at 7, Adrian said, rising to leave. "There's a charity reception at the Archer Gallery. I haven't agreed yet," Eliza reminded him. He paused at her door. "You're a reputation consultant facing a professional crisis because of me. I'm offering a controlled resolution that protects both our interests." His eyes held hers. "But if you prefer to handle this alone, I'll respect that choice." The rain had intensified, drumming against her windows. Eliza thought of the reporters outside, of Daniel's smug face when the story broke, of her boss's thinly veiled ultimatum. 7 o'clock, she agreed. Adrian nodded. "One question before I go." "Yes. Why did you choose me?" "In the terminal. There were dozens of other men." Eliza considered lying, then decided against it. "You looked contained. Like someone who understood boundaries." She shrugged slightly. "I needed 5 seconds of safety. You seemed like you could provide it." Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, perhaps, or recognition. "Until tomorrow, then." He opened her door, then hesitated. "For what it's worth. I'm sorry about your ex. He seemed like an ass." A startled laugh escaped her. "He is. Then his loss is." Adrian stopped himself, reconsidering. "Good night, Eliza." After he left, she sat in her quiet apartment, replaying their conversation. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Contract being drafted. We'll send for your review before signing. Nothing happens without your explicit consent." Eliza stared at the message. Most men in his position would have arrived with paperwork already prepared, terms non-negotiable. Instead, he'd offered choices, respected boundaries. She typed back, "Thank you for the consideration." His response came seconds later. "It's not consideration, it's the minimum standard." For the first time that day, Eliza felt something other than panic, not relief, exactly, but the sense that whatever storm she'd walked into, she might not be facing it entirely alone. Her phone buzzed again with a notification. Another tabloid headline speculating about her relationship with the reclusive billionaire. Beneath it, a comment from Daniel. "Always did have a talent for climbing ladders." Eliza closed the app. Tomorrow, she would step into Adrian Reeves' world of calculated appearances and corporate expectations. Tonight, she would prepare her armor. The Archer Gallery gleamed with crystal and old money. Eliza smoothed her navy dress, professional but elegant, as Adrian's driver opened the car door. "Ready?" Adrian asked beside her. He wore his public face, composed and distant, but his eyes held a question. "As I'll ever be," she replied. Cameras flashed the moment they appeared. Adrian's hand hovered near the small of her back, not quite touching. A gesture of guidance without possession. "Mr. Reeves, is this your new girlfriend? How long have you been seeing each other?" "Eliza, look this way." They moved through the barrage with practiced smiles. Adrian had briefed her in the car. Acknowledge without engaging, smile without inviting, keep moving. Inside, the attention shifted from blinding to subtle. Conversations paused as they passed, resuming in hushed tones behind them. Eliza felt gazes assessing the gap between their bodies, searching for tells. "Adrian." A silver-haired man approached, hand extended. "Didn't expect to see you tonight." "Lawrence." Adrian's tone was neutral. "May I introduce Eliza Matthews?" "Eliza, Lawrence Keller, chairman of Meridian's board." Lawrence's handshake was firm, his smile not reaching his eyes. The mysterious woman from the video. How fascinating. "Hardly mysterious," Eliza replied smoothly. "Just private." Privacy is a luxury in Adrian's position. Lawrence's gaze flickered between them. "The board was surprised by your emergence." "I imagine they were," she said, maintaining her smile. Lawrence leaned closer. "Adrian rarely brings guests to these functions. In fact, I can't recall the last time." "The Harrington Foundation dinner," Adrian interrupted. "If you'll excuse us, Lawrence." "I promised to introduce Eliza to Senator Wilson." As they moved away, Eliza felt Lawrence's gaze following them. "He doesn't approve," she murmured. "He doesn't need to," Adrian replied, voice low. "But you handled him perfectly." Throughout the evening, Eliza watched Adrian navigate the room with practiced ease. A nod here, a brief conversation there, always maintaining the precise distance that power required. Yet whenever they were approached together, something shifted. He angled his body slightly toward her, included her in conversations with subtle gestures, listened when she spoke. It was masterfully done. Anyone watching would see respect, perhaps attraction, but nothing inappropriate. Nothing that could damage either of their reputations. "You're very good at this," she said during a momentary lull. "At what?" "Creating the impression of intimacy while revealing nothing." Something flickered in his eyes. "Years of practice." The evening progressed smoothly until Eliza excused herself to the restroom. When she emerged, a familiar voice stopped her cold. "Well, well. Moving up in the world, aren't we?" Daniel stood blocking her path, champagne in hand, smile sharp as glass. "Excuse me," she said, attempting to step around him. He shifted to block her. "Adrian Reeves. Really, Liz? A bit obvious, don't you think?" "What I think is that this conversation is over." She kept her voice low, aware of curious glances. "He'll get bored, you know." Daniel leaned closer. "Men like him always do. Once the novelty wears off." "I believe Miss Matthews asked you to move." Adrian stood a few feet away, his expression calm, but his eyes hard. Daniel's smile widened. "Adrian Reeves himself. I was just catching up with an old friend." "Former colleague," Eliza corrected, "who was just leaving." "Actually, I have an invitation." Daniel raised his glass. Unlike some people who need to attach themselves to power to gain entry, Adrian stepped forward. Not aggressively, but with quiet certainty. "You don't speak to her that way. Not here. Not anywhere." The moment stretched, tension crackling between them. Then Daniel shrugged, his smile never wavering. "Just looking out for an old friend. Enjoy your evening." As he walked away, Eliza released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Are you all right?" Adrian asked quietly. "Fine." She straightened her shoulders. "Thank you for the intervention, but I could have handled it." "I know you could have." His voice held no condescension. "But you shouldn't have to. Not while you're with me. With me." The simple phrase hung between them, weighted with implications neither acknowledged. Later, as they prepared to leave, Lawrence intercepted them near the exit. "The Westfield dinner next Thursday," he said to Adrian. "The board expects your attendance, both of you." His gaze lingered on Eliza. "Our investors will be present." After he walked away, Eliza turned to Adrian. "That wasn't a request." "No," Adrian agreed. "It wasn't." In the car, silence settled between them until Adrian spoke. "Your ex seems determined to create problems. He enjoys control," she said simply. "I took some of that away when I left." Adrian studied her in the dim light. "You handled yourself with remarkable composure. Professional hazard. I manage other people's crises for a living, and your own." Eliza looked out at the passing city lights. "Those are more complicated." When the car stopped at her building, Adrian walked her to the door, despite her protests. "Was it what you expected?" she asked. "Tonight? No," he admitted. "You're not what I expected." Before she could ask what he meant, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression hardening momentarily. "The board," she guessed. "Always." He pocketed the phone. "Good night, Eliza." She watched him walk back to the waiting car, wondering what exactly she'd gotten herself into, and why. Despite every rational thought, she wasn't entirely regretting it. The penthouse windows framed the city like an expensive photograph, lights glittering against the night sky. Eliza stood before the vast expanse of glass, a tumbler of whiskey untouched in her hand. "Your board members are persistent," she said without turning. "That woman, Caroline, spent 20 minutes interrogating me about my intentions." Adrian's reflection appeared in the window as he approached. "Caroline believes herself responsible for protecting Meridian's interests. And I'm a potential threat to those interests. You're an unknown variable." He stopped beside her, maintaining a careful distance. In their world, that's the same thing. 3 weeks into their arrangement, and they'd settled into a rhythm. Public appearances, carefully choreographed, private conversations, increasingly honest. Tonight's dinner with board members had been the most challenging yet. A subtle interrogation disguised as polite conversation. "They think I'm after your money," Eliza said, finally taking a sip of whiskey, among other things. "What do you think?" Adrian studied her. "I think if you wanted money, you'd have chosen more direct methods than a 5-second embrace in an airport." A smile tugged at her lips. Fair assessment. Besides, he added, you've refused every gift I've attempted to offer. Gifts create obligation. I prefer clarity. Hence your profession. Eliza turned from the window. Speaking of which, I've been reinstated, provisionally. That's good news, with conditions. I'm to maintain a professional public image and avoid further reputational incidents. She set her glass down, apparently. Being seen with you counts as both a liability and an asset. Welcome to my world. Adrian moved to the leather sofa, gesturing for her to join him. When she did, he maintained the same careful distance he always kept. May I ask you something personal? Isn't that what we're doing? Why did your ex follow you to the terminal that day? The question caught her off guard. Eliza considered deflecting, then decided against it. Their arrangement was temporary. Truth seemed the least complicated option. Daniel and I worked at the same firm before I joined Clarity. We were together for 8 months. She traced the rim of her glass. I discovered he'd been using our relationship to access client information, positioning himself for a promotion, while describing me as a convenient stepping stone to colleagues. He leaked confidential data, not technically. But he used my trust to gain insights he shouldn't have had. Eliza's voice remained steady. When I confronted him, he made sure everyone heard his version first, that I was unstable, jealous, imagining threats, and they believed him. Enough of them did. I resigned rather than fight a battle that would damage my professional reputation further. She met Adrian's gaze. The terminal was the first time I'd seen him since. Adrian's expression darkened. He deliberately created a public scene to humiliate you. Control through public narrative. It's effective. It's despicable. Silence settled between them, comfortable, despite the weight of her confession. Your turn, Eliza finally said. Why does your board suddenly care about your personal life? Adrian was quiet for so long. She thought he might not answer. When he did, his voice was measured, careful. Meridian is finalizing a major acquisition, a family-owned media company with traditional values. The family has concerns about my leadership style. Too cold. To want assurance that the man taking control of their legacy understands human connection. His mouth curved in a humorless smile. Apparently, my reputation for privacy translates as emotional detachment. So they pressured you to appear more accessible. They suggested I consider how my public image affects shareholder confidence. Eliza studied him. And our arrangement helps with that perception. It provides evidence of normal human interaction. Yes. Is that all it provides? The question hung between them, more revealing than she'd intended. Adrian's gaze met hers, something unguarded flickering in his eyes. No, he said quietly. It's not all. He shifted slightly, his hand coming to rest on the sofa between them. For a moment, Eliza thought he might reach for her. Instead, his fingers stopped a breath away from hers, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his skin without actual contact. The moment stretched between them, electric with possibility. Then Adrian's phone buzzed, shattering the silence. He withdrew his hand to check the message, his expression closing. The board again, she asked. Always. He set the phone down. It's late. I should have my driver take you home. As they stood, Eliza felt the careful distance reassert itself. Professional, contained, safe. At the elevator, Adrian hesitated. Thank you, he said, for your honesty tonight. We agreed on transparency. Yes, but he paused. Most people in your position would leverage this situation differently. I'm not most people. No, he agreed, something like admiration in his voice. You're not. In the descending elevator, Eliza leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. 2 more weeks of their arrangement remained. 2 more weeks of public scrutiny and private conversations. 2 more weeks before they could walk away unscathed. The thought should have brought relief. Instead, it left an unexpected hollowness in her chest. The Meridian Media Group boardroom gleamed with polished wood and subtle wealth. Through its glass walls, the city spread below like a circuit board, distant and orderly. Eliza sat in an anteroom, waiting as Adrian concluded an emergency meeting that had interrupted their lunch plans. Her phone buzzed with a message from her boss. Client meeting rescheduled. Need you back by 3. She texted back confirmation, then glanced at her watch. Nearly an hour had passed. Through the glass, she could see Adrian standing at the head of the table. His expression controlled as he addressed the board members. Lawrence Keller sat opposite him, leaning forward with intensity. Even without hearing the words, Eliza recognized the body language of confrontation. The door opened, and Adrian's assistant emerged. Ms. Matthews. Mr. Reeves apologizes for the delay. He's asked if you could join them briefly. Surprised, Eliza followed her into the boardroom. Conversation ceased as she entered. 12 pairs of eyes assessing her with varying degrees of interest and suspicion. Ms. Matthews. Adrian's voice betrayed no strain, though the tension in the room was palpable. Thank you for your patience. The board had some questions about our upcoming appearance at the Westfield Foundation Gala. Lawrence Keller's smile didn't reach his eyes. We were discussing the importance of appropriate public representation during this critical acquisition period. Eliza maintained her professional smile. Of course, public perception is crucial during transitions. Precisely. Lawrence gestured to the chair beside Adrian. Perhaps you could offer your expertise as a reputation consultant. The invitation felt like a trap, but Eliza took the seat with practiced composure. I'd be happy to address specific concerns. Wonderful. Lawrence slid a tablet across the table. We've prepared some guidelines for the gala. Your professional opinion would be valuable. Adrian's expression remained neutral, but she noticed the slight tension in his jaw as she accepted the tablet. The document displayed was titled, Asset Reputation Management, Acquisition Phase. Scanning the contents, Eliza's stomach tightened. The document outlined a comprehensive strategy for Adrian's public image during the acquisition, including specific parameters for his personal relationship narrative. Her own name appeared under a section labeled Approved, a public partner strategy, with detailed notes about her background, appearance, and narrative value. Below that, a timeline indicated a relationship conclusion, scheduled for the week after the acquisition closed. Everything, from their chance meeting to their eventual parting, had been mapped out before Adrian ever appeared at her door. These are quite thorough, her voice steady despite the cold realization spreading through her. Though I'm curious about the implementation timeline. It seems to predate our actual arrangement. Lawrence's smile tightened. Contingency planning is essential in our position. Of course. Eliza handed the tablet back, meeting Adrian's gaze. His eyes held something unreadable. Regret, perhaps, or apology. If you'll excuse me, I have a client meeting to prepare for. Actually, Lawrence interjected, we were hoping you might provide input on the gala approach, as Adrian's. And your cooperation ensures message consistency. The word companion carried unmistakable implications. Eliza maintained her professional smile while rising from her seat. I believe my role was clearly established as a personal acquaintance, not a corporate asset. She gathered her bag. Any message consistency should be discussed with Mr. Reeves directly. She felt Adrian watching her as she moved toward the door, his silence more damning than any explanation could have been. Ms. Matthews, Lawrence called after her. Discretion is paramount during this phase. I trust we can count on your professional understanding. Eliza paused at the door. My professional understanding is precisely why I recognize manipulation when I see it. She turned back to the room, her gaze sweeping over the board before settling on Adrian. Good afternoon, gentlemen. In the elevator, she pressed her palms against her eyes, breathing deeply. The document confirmed what she should have suspected from the beginning. She wasn't a solution to an unexpected problem. She was part of a calculated strategy, selected and approved before Adrian ever approached her. Her phone buzzed with Adrian's name on the screen. She silenced it. At Clarity's offices, Thomas was waiting with a concerned expression. We need to talk. About. He handed her a printout, a blog post speculating about her relationship with Adrian, suggesting it was a strategic partnership rather than a genuine connection. This is creating complications, Thomas said carefully. Clients are questioning your judgment. My judgment remains professional. Your involvement with Reeves suggests otherwise. Thomas's voice softened slightly. The board has recommended a temporary suspension until the situation clarifies. You mean until I end things with Adrian? I mean until your personal choices no longer impact our client relationships. Eliza handed back the printout. My personal choices have never affected my work. Perception matters in our business. You know that better than anyone. Outside, rain began to fall, streaking the office windows. Eliza watched the droplets trace paths down the glass, remembering Adrian's words from their first meeting. We can't erase the story. We can only shape it. Except the story had been shaped long before she entered it, crafted in boardrooms and strategy sessions, with her role predetermined and her exit already scheduled. Take some time, Thomas suggested. Consider your priorities. As she gathered her things, her phone buzzed again with Adrian's name. This time, she turned it off completely. The narrative was clear now. All that remained was deciding whether to follow the script to its predetermined conclusion, or tear up the pages and write her own ending. 3 days of silence stretched between them like a wall. Eliza had ignored Adrian's calls, his messages, even the flowers delivered to her apartment with a note requesting they talk. Instead, she'd watched from a distance as media speculation exploded. Trouble in paradise. Reeves' mystery woman disappears. Sources claim Reeves' relationship was par stunt. Meridian acquisition in jeopardy, as CEO's reputation questioned. Each headline twisted the knife deeper. Not because they affected her, though they did, but because they confirmed what she'd seen in that boardroom document. Everything had been calculated, including her eventual exit. On the 4th day, her building security called. Ms. Matthews, there's an Adrian Reeves in the lobby. Says he won't leave until you see him. Eliza closed her eyes. Send him up. She opened her door to find Adrian standing there. His usual composure fractured by exhaustion. Rain dampened his shoulders. An echo of that first night that wasn't lost on her. 5 minutes, she said, stepping aside. He entered, but remained standing. You saw the document. I did. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. Eliza crossed her arms. A corporate strategy with my name in it. A timeline that predated our arrangement. An exit strategy already planned. Adrian ran a hand through his damp hair. The board drafted that document without my knowledge. I discovered it the day before I came to your apartment, and didn't think to mention it. I was trying to protect you. From what? The truth. Eliza's laugh held no humor. That I was selected as a suitable public partner before you ever approached me. You weren't selected. You were evaluated after the video went viral. Adrian's voice tightened. The board investigated everyone in my orbit. When they discovered you were a reputation consultant with a clean background, they saw an opportunity, which you took, which I tried to mitigate. He stepped closer. I came to your apartment that night to warn you, to offer a controlled alternative to what they were planning, while conveniently omitting that they'd already drafted a complete strategy. Adrian's expression hardened. I tried to void that clause the first night. They threatened to invoke my contract's moral conduct provision if I didn't cooperate with the acquisition strategy. So you used me instead. I protected you from becoming tabloid fodder, while trying to maintain enough control to keep the board from taking more drastic measures. His voice dropped. I never lied about our arrangement, only about how it began. Eliza studied him, searching for deception. And now the board has issued an ultimatum. Either I replace you with someone more acquisition appropriate, or they'll invoke emergency voting rights to suspend my decision-making authority during the transition. Replace me. The words felt hollow, like changing a faulty part. Their words, not mine. Adrian's expression softened. I refused. Why? Because you deserve better than being treated as an asset. He hesitated. And because what's between us stopped being strategic weeks ago. The admission hung in the air between them. Too honest to dismiss, too complicated to accept. The media is running with the PR stunt angle, Eliza said finally. My professional reputation is in tatters. Clients are distancing themselves. My firm has suspended me. Adrian's expression darkened. I'll speak to them. Don't. She shook her head. That only confirms I need your intervention. Then what do you want me to do? Nothing. This was always temporary, remember? Eliza maintained her composure through sheer will. The board gets what it wanted. Your image humanized for the acquisition. I get my life back. Clean break. Is that what you want? The question stripped away her defenses. Did she want this to end? The media scrutiny? Yes. The corporate manipulation? Absolutely. But Adrian himself? The private conversations? The careful distance that somehow felt more intimate than touch? The understanding that had grown between them? What I want doesn't matter, she said finally. Your board has made their position clear, and I won't be someone's corporate strategy. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. The Westfield Gala is tomorrow night. The acquisition family will be there, along with major investors and press, I'm aware. Come with me. Eliza stared at him. Did you miss the part where your board wants me replaced? I don't care what they want. For the first time, real anger flashed in his eyes. This is my company, my life. Adrian, one last appearance. On our terms, not theirs. His gaze held hers. After that, if you want to walk away, I won't stop you. Why does it matter so much? Because I'm tired of living by their script. He stepped closer. Close enough that she could see the determination in his eyes. And because I think you are too. The rain intensified outside, drumming against her windows. Eliza thought of the board's document, of the media speculation, of the careful distance Adrian had always maintained. Until now. If I agree, she said slowly, we do this my way. No more corporate strategies. No more calculated appearances. Agreed. And afterward, we both walk away. Clean ending. Something flickered in his eyes. Disappointment, perhaps, or resignation. If that's what you want. It wasn't. The realization struck her with unexpected clarity. But wanting wasn't enough when trust had been fractured. Tomorrow night, then, she said. One last appearance. Adrian nodded, moving toward the door. He paused with his hand on the knob. For what it's worth, Eliza, you were never just part of the strategy to me. After he left, she stood in her silent apartment, wondering if she was making the right choice, or if, once again, she was following someone else's script. The Westfield Foundation Gala transformed the historic Blackwood Hotel into a glittering showcase of wealth and influence. Camera flashes illuminated the red carpet as Eliza stepped from Adrian's car, her hand resting lightly in his. Ready? He asked, his voice low enough that only she could hear. She nodded, feeling the weight of what they were about to do. This wasn't just their final appearance. It was a deliberate statement to the board, the media, and the acquisition family watching from inside. Lawrence Keller intercepted them just past the entrance, his smile tight with warning. Adrian, Ms. Matthews, a word before you proceed. He guided them to a quiet alcove, maintaining his public smile while his voice dropped to a controlled hiss. The Harrington family is watching your every move tonight. The acquisition paperwork is prepared for tomorrow's signing. This is not the time for improvisation. Adrian's expression remained neutral. Is there a problem, Lawrence? You know exactly what the problem is. Lawrence's gaze flicked to Eliza. The board was explicit about expectations following Ms. Matthews' indiscretion at the meeting. My indiscretion? Eliza raised an eyebrow. You mean discovering I was part of a corporate strategy without my knowledge? Lawrence ignored her, focusing on Adrian. Rebecca Winters is here tonight. Yale Law. Family connections to 3 board members. Impeccable background. She's been briefed and is prepared to step in smoothly. Step in, Eliza repeated, the pieces clicking into place. You've already selected my replacement. Contingency planning, Lawrence said dismissively. Adrian understands what's at stake. Adrian's expression hardened. What's at stake is my company's integrity, not to mention basic human decency. This isn't about decency. It's about $68 million in shareholder value, and the largest acquisition in Meridian's history. Lawrence leaned closer. The speech is prepared. You'll thank Ms. Matthews for her friendship. Introduce Rebecca as your guest for the foundation announcement, and we all move forward professionally. And if I don't, then the board votes tomorrow morning on your fitness to lead during this transition. Lawrence straightened his tie. Choose wisely, Adrian. As he walked away, Eliza turned to Adrian. He's not bluffing. No, he's not. Adrian's jaw tightened. They've been looking for leverage since I refused to replace you. Then do what they want. Eliza kept her voice steady. This was always temporary. We both knew that. Adrian studied her face. Is that really what you want? Before she could answer, they were announced to the room. Applause rippled through the crowd as they entered, all eyes turning toward them. Across the room, Eliza spotted a striking woman in a burgundy dress, watching them with calculated interest. Rebecca Winters, presumably. Lawrence approached the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, we're honored to have Meridian Media Group's CEO, Adrian Reeves, say a few words about tonight's foundation initiative. Adrian squeezed Eliza's hand once before releasing it and walking to the podium. The room quieted as he surveyed the crowd, his gaze passing over the board members, the acquisition family, and finally landing on Eliza. I had a speech prepared, he began, setting aside the note cards Lawrence had pressed into his hand. About corporate responsibility and community investment. Important topics, certainly. The board members exchanged glances as Adrian continued. But tonight I want to speak about something more fundamental. Integrity. His voice strengthened. For years, I've allowed Meridian's board to dictate not just business strategy, but personal choices. I've permitted my life to be packaged as a corporate asset. Lawrence stepped forward, alarm evident in his expression. But Adrian continued. 3 weeks ago, a video of me embracing a woman in an airport went viral. What you don't know is that the board immediately drafted a strategy to exploit that moment, to use her as a public relations tool, without her knowledge or consent. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Eliza felt dozens of eyes turn toward her. When I discovered their plan, I tried to mitigate the damage. I approached Eliza Matthews with a proposition, a controlled narrative that would protect us both. Adrian's gaze found hers across the room. What I didn't anticipate was finding someone who valued truth over convenience, who challenged me to examine what I'd sacrificed for corporate approval. Lawrence reached for the microphone, but Adrian stepped away, continuing without amplification, his voice carrying through the hushed room. Tonight, the board expected me to discard Ms. Matthews for someone more suitable to their strategy, to treat human connection as interchangeable parts in a corporate machine. His expression hardened. I refuse. The silence in the room was absolute as Adrian stepped away from the podium, ignoring Lawrence's furious expression and walking directly to Eliza. I apologize for the spectacle, he said quietly, but I'm done with their script. Before she could respond, Lawrence's voice cut through the room. Mr. Reeves will be taking a brief leave while the board addresses some internal matters. We appreciate your understanding. The crowd's reaction was immediate. Phones appeared. Whispers erupted. Journalists moved toward exits to file stories. Adrian took Eliza's elbow, guiding her toward a side door as the chaos unfolded behind them. In a quiet hallway, away from cameras and curious eyes, he finally stopped. I've probably just lost control of my company. You knew that would happen. Yes, his expression softened. Some things matter more. Adrian, I don't regret it. He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the certainty in his eyes. Not the speech. Not approaching you that first night. None of it. Eliza studied him, searching for calculation or strategy in his expression. She found only honesty, raw and unguarded. What happens now? She asked. Now I fight for my company. Without compromising what matters. He hesitated. Unless you still want that clean ending. Eliza thought of the board's document, of the replacement waiting in the ballroom, of the careful distance Adrian had always maintained. Until tonight. No more strategies, she said. No more scripts. Just truth, he agreed. Then hold me a moment, she whispered, echoing her words from that first night. This time, when Adrian's arms closed around her, there were no cameras, no audience, no corporate approval. Just two people choosing connection over convenience, truth over appearance. Outside, rain began to fall, streaking the windows of the Grand Hotel. But in that quiet hallway, sheltered from judgment and expectation, Eliza and Adrian found something neither had been looking for when a desperate request in a crowded terminal brought them together, a chance to write their own story on their own terms.